Hello and welcome to Inside Iraq. I'm Jassim Azzawi. Iraq's neighbors met again to stem the bloodshed while a ticking clock telegraphed an impending catastrophe. Financial pledges and promises of national reconciliations were made, prompting cynics to say, "We've heard it all before." The US accused Iran as the culprit responsible for fueling the spiraling chaos, while others accuse al-Maliki's government of being a sectarian. So aside from wiping most of Iraq's debt, will this conference achieve anything, or will it fail as previous summits? Here is Imran Khan.
The violence in Iraq continues as its neighbours gather in the chic Egyptian resort of Sharm el-Sheikh. The sun shining here, and inside it was all diplomatic niceties for a conference that has caused much controversy. Top of the agenda, Iran and Syria and the role they play in Iraq. The tone was set even before the conference began. On a visit to the holy city of Najaf, senior Iranian envoy Ali Larijani had this to say.
The Americans know that Iran has been supporting the political process in Iraq. And the Americans also know from which countries those terrorists come from. These terrorists come from countries which are friends of the United States.
But Syrian involvement in Iraq also dominated. Washington accuses the Syrian regime of allowing anti-US insurgents to come across its border. Syria denies the accusations, but US President George Bush was clear on what he thought was a watershed moment. He said that the conference will be an important test of whether Iran and Syria truly want to help their war-torn neighbour. But perhaps the last word should be left to the man many tip to be the future leader of Iraq, Iyad Alawi, and he's not confident.
The bilateral discussions without involving the others, without having the region, because you don't have now only a problem between, say, Iran and Iraq, interventions, or Iran and the United States. It's a global, a locally global issue where you have Saudi Arabia, you have Turkey, you have Syria, you have Jordan, you have the UAE, you have all the region.
What Iyad Alawi has just said is of interest for those looking for peace in Iraq. However, with so many conflicting interests being represented at the conference and the blame game in full swing, his voice might be lost, and so might a historic opportunity. Imran Khan for Inside Iraq.
To explore the potential success or failure of Sharm el-Sheikh summit, I am joined from Washington, D.C. by former U.S. Assistant Secretary of State for the Near East, Ambassador Ed Walker, and from Amman, Jordan, by Dr. Saleh al-Mutlaq, leader of the National Dialogue Front. Gentlemen, welcome to Inside Iraq. Ambassador Walker, cynics would say, we have heard it all before. This is not the first conference, and perhaps it will not be the last. Why would this one be any different than previous conferences and pledges and promises?
Well, it's going to be different because the United States is in a different position than it was before. The president is facing enormous pressure inside the United States, political pressure, to do something about Iraq, to change his policy. And what you're seeing now is the reflection of that pressure in the fact that we're no longer telling the world that we can solve its problems unilaterally. We're telling the world that we need the help of others to solve our problem, and we're willing to discuss those problems. That's what Condi was doing when she was talking with the Syrian foreign minister, opening a door, and that's what this conference does. It opens a door for a different approach to the problem of Iraq, one that is more inclusive than one that is exclusive.
These promises and pledges were made by Iraq before, and none other by the current al-Maliki to the U.S. Are you telling me that this time, because the president is looking at the abyss and perhaps his legacy, the gloves are off, and this time there will be accountability by Baghdad?
Well, I certainly hope so, because if Maliki doesn't do something, if he doesn't start the process of reconciliation in that country, first of all, he won't survive very much longer, because he certainly won't have the support of the broad Iraqi public, and he won't have the support of the United States, or for that matter, of most of his neighbors. So al-Maliki is looking at a ticking clock and is going to have to make some decisions. The key decision he has to make, I know there's a whole host of things they want, that people want from him, but there's only one thing that really counts, and that's reconciliation between the Shiite and the Sunni populations. That means there has to be some kind of a de-Baathification process that rapidly brings people back into the mainstream, that allows war criminals to be tried and punished, but allows the vast majority of people that participated in the Saddam Hussein government to come back into the fold and start taking their place in trying to make this a unified country with growth and the welfare of its people at stake.
Dr. Saleh, the recipe just outlined by Ambassador Walker is well known to everybody, including al-Maliki. He keeps repeating it. But the powers behind him, primarily Jam, Muqtada al-Sadr, Siri, Abdul Aziz al-Hakim, and others, are dead against bringing the Ba'athis and bringing members of the old regime because they feel that they will be contesting the power. So is al-Maliki speaking with one tongue while the commanders and people that they have the actual power on the ground are doing something completely different?
No, actually, this is the problem, that people think that al-Maliki could do something for, for the situation, but he is being surrounded by these political groups which are against everything which is being said now. They are not looking for reconciliation. They are not looking for ending the de-Baathification. They are not accepting the previous army to come back. They are not willing to dissolve their militias. So he is working alone, and I am definitely sure that he cannot do anything. And the United States and the people who gathered, the world in general who gathered themselves in Sharm el-Sheikh, they have to prepare themselves for the next step, a step and after which they feel it is necessary when they found out that al-Maliki did not do anything from the promises he made. I want to remind you here that al-Maliki said at the beginning of the government, his government, he said that he will dissolve the militias and he will disarm them. And then he repeated that 3 times during the period in which he is governing Iraq, and now he is repeating it again.
Once bitten, twice shy, Mr. Ed Walker. Like you said, the clock is ticking. Perhaps for the Bush administration as well as al-Maliki. Is President Bush and perhaps Ambassador Ryan Crocker in Baghdad, they're gonna, from Sharm el-Sheikh onwards, they're gonna be watching this government. If it does not come to fulfill its promises, perhaps he will be out, he will be thrown out, Ambassador?
Well, I think that maybe his own political system will start to resist so strongly that he has no option. I agree that it is very unlikely that he'll be able to pull together a strong enough political base in order to make major revisions in the system. But I do think that he's going to lose the support of the United States if he doesn't. And he's going to lose the support of all those countries that are pledging to help out right now. They won't help as long as this government does nothing. So it's really up to him. Whether he's strong enough as a leader to do that, I have my doubts.
To what extent, Dr. Saleh, the surge currently, perhaps not in full swing, but by August or September, the extra 40,000 coming to Baghdad, to Anbar, will it create the political climate for al-Maliki to crack his whip? Right now, perhaps he's weakened by the militias, but towards the end of the year, will he be able to muster the enough political and military force in order to show that he is the strong man in Iraq?
No, I don't think so. I think he, if he has the wish and he has the determination, he could do it now. But he is trying to prolong his stay in the government by being some sort of cooperation with the other groups which brought him to this government. So I don't think, even if the United States bring 100,000 soldiers again, it will not solve the problem in Iraq. It can only be solved by a political solution and by a real reconciliation in the country. And by the way, I do believe that these people who are in the government now, they cannot do it simply because from the time they came in Iraq till now, they were looking for revenge. instead of reconciliation. They were looking for isolating all the others and trying to control everything by themselves. So they don't have the mentality to do so, to act in a way to bring all the Iraqis together.
It was telling Dr. Saleh
here that the problem in Iraq is not sectarianism in Iraq is not between the Sunnis and the Shiite. It is between the political parties, the Islamist parties, both from the Sunnis and from the Shiite. So unless there will be a way to get rid of all these, sectarian parties from the power, there is no real future for Iraq.
Ambassador
and these
Walker,
sectarian groups were brought in by the Americans. They didn't do a coup in Iraq by themselves.
Ambassador Walker, it was telling when Dr. Saleh said, those people are bent on revenge. You shook your head and said, What does that mean?
Well, I think that's exactly one of the problems. You know, when we came in and we started to define their constitution for them and the way that the government would be formed and the voting process and so on, what we did was we cemented the sectarian separation within the country. We didn't think enough about how do you eliminate those divisions and get reconciliation. The process is upside down. Voting should have come much later. It should have come after a reconciliation process took place. All right, that's water under the dam, but now you've got to start to really work hard. We didn't get, in every conflict that I've been involved in, reconciliation has been the only solution to concluding that conflict. And you have a lot of emotion backed up in there with people who have lost family members and everything else. But until they all decide that, look, this is not going anywhere, it's only getting worse, and we've got to find a way out and start working with each other, it's not going to happen. It doesn't matter how many military you bring in. Our generals have said that the military can't solve this problem. It's got to be a political problem. I agree with that.
Ambassador Walker, we'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll ask you the question about purging the Iraqi nationalist military commander. Stay with us.
Iraq should deploy efforts in order to lessen the tension between the various stakeholders, namely between the United States of America and Iran and Syria.